Snaps good, holds good, kick on the way by Conradi, end over end, and it is good! Kyle Conradi hit a 54-yard field goal, and Iowa State leads it 20-19! Oh my goodness!
What's up, and welcome back, everyone, to the Iowa State Fan Perspective, as always, brought to you by us here at Play the Fight Song College Football Show. Before we begin, everybody can do this. Do it with me. Do you exhale? Do you finally just let it go? Your Cyclones survive in Salt Lake City. They are 9-2, winning 9 games for the first time in regular season history. Justin, as you can tell, as I'm kind of just stumbling, almost not knowing where to go. I don't know. You seem a little more collected than myself today, as Iowa State survives a thriller on the road, 31-28 against Utah. Justin, before we get into all of that, any initial thoughts, or how are we doing this Sunday afternoon as your Cyclones, have a chance to win 10 football games next Saturday?
Yeah, doing good. I don't know if collected is the word. I would use maybe a little bit nervous, a little excited, a little stressed out, just kind of pumping some energy, and still got the adrenaline running from last night. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's adrenaline kind of runs differently when you're at the actual game itself. And, maybe it's a crazy game. Like me and you were both at the UCF game. Obviously, we were pretty fired up after that crazy comeback win. I guess the Iowa game this year, I kind of felt the same way. But the point is, I was trying to remember a game where I sat and watched it on TV, and I hadn't had a feeling like that in some time. Just like this exhausted energy after the game, where like it just kind of let it all out. And it took me a good couple of hours before I kind of settled down, and my heart rate just like lowered. I might sound dramatic, but yesterday, with everything just leading up to it, right? Everything on the line. You're going for the first 9-win regular season accomplishment in your program's history. You get literally right before that at 2:30, everything falls your way with Kansas beating Colorado, Arizona State beating BYU, and now it's just you head into Salt Lake City to take care of business. And
tried not to.
I was trying to be careful with my words, Justin. It just tried to give it away so many times. Now, I don't want to take away the credit for Iowa State coming away with a victory, but it was just, how many more of these can we do? I can't do any of them more like this. I don't know about you.
It's just a weird way that they go about it, because I mean, for most of the game, like, it was like super relaxing. It was like we totally dominated and owned them on defense. The offense was actually playing pretty well and clicking. And then we just make these bonehead mistakes that just throw them a bone and get them right back into the game. And it's just like these huge swings of like up and down. And I mean, going into that last possession, I wasn't very confident. I kind of thought they were going to go down and score. I was pretty relieved by the end of it. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah. We'll actually, before we dive into the entire game itself and everything, make sure you guys check out our entire channel, like the video. We want to continue to grow this. Your guys' support and watching us each and every single week as Iowa State fans, we truly do appreciate it. And it's just made this season that much more special, being along the way with Justin and I. Check out our other stuff at Play the Fight Song. Just cover college football content everywhere. So subscribe to the channel, like the video. Comment below. We're going to cover the K-State game at the end, as we always do, looking to the next Saturday. But make sure to go check out our partners over at No Rivals, shopnorivals.com. Use the code PTFS for free shipping at checkout. If you guys watch us every week, you know the deal. When we get to our prediction segment for the Kansas State game, let us know who's going to win in Farmageddon between Kansas State and Iowa State. Give us a score prediction. And if you're subscribed to our channel, you go 2 for 2 and you're subscribed, we will get you guys a hat at shopnorivals.com. They have been awesome partners with us all season long. K-State fans, if you stumbled across this video, welcome. Appreciate you tuning in. They have a hat for you guys at shopnorivals.com. So make sure to go check them out and use our code. Iowa State fans, I tell you every week, go to the teams tab, request a team, let them know we need an Ames hat, an upside down Ames hat. I'm a big fan of the upside down lettering. I know some people are not, but we're getting that's I don't know. We're getting Iowa State hats from No Rivals next season. I will not let us down. put my word on it. They're listening to us, I promise. All right, Justin. Now we can dive into kind of the entire game itself. Iowa State goes on the road, gets out of Salt Lake with a massive victory. Iowa State now moves up to 17th in the AP poll. A lot of times, guys, we talk all year, like the AP poll doesn't matter, but at least the last 2 weeks with the new college football playoff rankings, they've been really similar. So I'm interested to see where Iowa State shows up in the CFP polls on Tuesday, but I got to feel like it's going to be pretty close to 17th. Justin, we're just 2 weeks removed from getting beaten down in Kansas City, and it was uncertain if Iowa State would get back this high into the rankings in 17th. And now one game stands between you and a trip to Dallas and another chance at the college football playoff. Overall thoughts from the entire game that was last night?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure where to start exactly. I thought the team played pretty well overall compared to how they have been the last couple weeks. But it was just like we talked about with the Colorado-Kansas game ending right before it. It was such a pressure spot for Iowa State that historically we have not been able to play very well in, and we're kind of used to the mistakes that we saw yesterday. I saw a couple tweets yesterday. It was like Iowa State's hands now, or the fate of Iowa State is now in the worst hands possible, the hands of Iowa State.
You got to shout out Jack Trice Mafia on Twitter. Yeah, he's
and I was good. Like, that could not be more accurate. And they played, they went into it. And credit to them, they got the job done, played well. But some of those mistakes, man, I just I can't get over how sloppy the team's kind of looked the last couple of weeks, honestly.
I know Darian Porter admitted it in the press conference. Matt Campbell did not. He said he didn't know. Do you think that the team knew what was at stake, right? They knew Colorado had lost.
Absolutely. I mean, it's 2024. I think the guys know.
Well, you just never know. Like, I guess I don't know how long they get maybe like phone access or if there's a TV in the locker room.
Someone told them. I mean,
right.
Yeah, they obviously all knew. And I think that just adds to the tension even more, adds to the stakes of that game. So it was good to actually see him come out on the other side with a win. Hopefully that means for this upcoming game, a lot of those nerves are gone because it's one game. You don't got to worry about anything else. I mean, I guess who knows with the BYU Houston thing on if BYU ends up losing, Iowa State could still get
Iowa State wins
out. But
if Iowa State or did you say if BYU loses? There's a chance of getting
if Houston beats BYU, we can still get left out if Arizona State and Colorado both win.
I ain't even worried about that. There's no way BYU's losing the last game. But it's sorry, go ahead.
Exactly, and that doesn't really matter as far as the whole 10-win season and capping the season off. But it's a one-game situation, so I'm a lot less worried about the nerves getting to us this upcoming week than I was for this Utah game for sure.
I will say, and now I haven't seen people do this, but we can talk about it. There's some similarities and there's some differences between this incredible win in the UCF game, where there were definitely, I felt like for me, these were the only games this year where I was like, I don't think Iowa State's going to win this one, and actually ended up winning the game. That didn't come from yesterday. That one didn't come into me until, the ball last on their last possession where they had the ball. And I still had faith that they'd be able to do it, but you just shoot yourself in the foot so many times. Like UCF came out, punched you in the mouth. It just seemed like they were the better team that day. Iowa State was head and shoulders better than Utah. I think they should have won that football game 35-3, 35-10. There was just zero business being in that game. And I think that for me is why I was so frustrated. The UCF game, I'm like, Harvey looks so good. Ja'Cory Brown's running all over the field. Yesterday, I'm like, they can't throw the ball. Mekhi Bernard was averaging 2 yards per carry. They didn't score their first offensive touchdown until the fourth quarter to take the lead. Of course that happens. And you're just sitting there like, how did you get into this situation? And Iowa State fans, you deserve that win yesterday. You completely do, because you have been, I don't know, lack for better term, screwed over. You've seen Iowa State crumble in these spots time and time again. I'm telling you, Justin, regardless of Saturday's result against Kansas State, the result that happened yesterday doesn't happen in Iowa State's previous spots. I've seen them lose that football game so many times. The pick six, the botched fumble, botched punt snap for a touchdown. Like, Iowa State doesn't usually never overcomes those things.
Yeah, yesterday definitely would not have been a case of Utah winning the game, where if we would have lost the UCF game, I would have said UCF won that game. Like they were the better team. We just ended up coming out on top. Iowa State was definitely just shooting themselves in the foot yesterday, and that would have made it all the more painful, and it just makes it all the more relieving that we were able to come out on top. And I know you touched on a lot of the bad historical moments that Iowa State has faced, and I think, like, as a team, this is something that Campbell wanted to stick around for. This is something that he wanted to overcome. And yesterday was one of those games. And I mean, as bad as we looked at some points, we looked really well in others, on the road in a really tough environment. And sometimes it's not easy. It's college football. It's not clean. Look at a lot of the other losses throughout the country. Just for us to come out with a victory is so big for Iowa State as a whole and where this program is heading. And for them to have one game left and for it to all kind of be on the line like that, I mean, I don't know. It gets me emotional even just thinking about like the game coming up on Saturday.
Perfect football does not exist this year in 2024. If you think that exists, you haven't watched literally anybody else in college football. Yesterday was a perfect example. Nobody's sitting here talking about Iowa State and how they choked this game away, because they got it done. They won ugly. And there are teams like Ole Miss, Alabama, Indiana, can't all say the same. And some of those teams may have knocked their chances out of the playoff. And as an Iowa State fan, you can say that you still have your shot going into the final game of the season. Justin, I think you kind of touched on it. There were some good points. And I think that was the most frustrating part. I didn't expect Iowa State to move the ball as well as they really did yesterday. Going into this one, Jaden Higgins, 155 yards, 9 catches, 1 score. Could be, I mean, it's probably one of his top 3 best games as a Cyclone, as far as I can remember.
Yeah, that was huge. That offense is like, I mean, look around the offense. We don't have near the success that we have if we didn't have 9 on our team. Like, that was just a matchup nightmare for them. And even the one possession we were in the red zone that we didn't score, it's because we went at Higgins 3 times and they were all over him.
Yep. And I feel like, too, that was one of the better third down games Iowa State's had all year. Iowa State converted so many third downs. They were really, really good, and they kept staying on the field. And that's why it was just so frustrating, because if they score instead of, I mean, that's a 14-point swing. That pick six, like if they score there instead of throwing a pick, like I think it's over in that second quarter. And regardless, it happened and whatever.
14-3.
Yeah, they get over it. But it was just like Utah was doing nothing. Like, they came out with their scripted first possession. They hit a long bomb. Good for them. Couldn't move the ball after that. They settled for a field goal. And after that, it was go from there for Iowa State up until that pick six. Like, just continually to move the ball, and felt like they were just completing third down catch after third down catch. But nonetheless, you do have to give a shout out to a guy like Jaden Higgins. And I saw a tweet today that said Rocco Beck is the most clutch quarterback in Iowa State history. I mean, Justin, it's true. Like, I don't even think there's an argument. And we know that there's a guy in the NFL repping Iowa State on his back who plays the position really, really well. But 3 is better in that regard. I mean, how many game-winning drives is this now this year? I mean, the top of your head. Iowa, UCF, Utah. Am I forgetting a couple? I mean, even Texas Tech gave him the lead.
Yeah.
Gave him the lead there. Trying to think of another one. Baylor, no. West Virginia, not real. I mean, they had a good drive at the end. But so that's, I mean, you had 4 go-ahead scores on your last possession. Again, that doesn't happen.
And especially in a game where, I mean, the stats don't show it because he only threw the one pick six, but I felt like there were a lot of throws that he was kind of leaving out there, taking a lot of risk in that game. And it's kind of something that he's been doing, been making a lot more mistakes the last couple of games, which honestly, I'm kind of surprised to see that from him. But the poise that he continues to show, like in the fourth quarter, like, yeah, he's been making those mistakes, but it hasn't rattled him at all. And like, especially from the quarterback, if that's going to rattle him, it's going to rattle the team. And like this, it's kind of like the season as a whole, like going through that 2-game losing streak and to battle back and to be where they are with one game left in the season. I mean, yeah, you can't ask more of a kid, especially being in his second season.
This is the most Iowa State season ever, right? Like the best, of course, the best historically regular season in Iowa State's football program history, however you want to phrase it. Like, of course, this would be it. Like you lose early in November, you think it's over. Just all the last second comebacks and the injuries you faced and just all of the adversity. You wouldn't take it for anything else as an Iowa State fan. But I mean, of course, this is how it works, right?
Yeah. And regardless of what happens on Saturday, yeah, you can't complain about it because with all the injuries, with the ups and downs, I mean, this team has continued to fight and they're so fun to root for. As hard as it's been in some of these games, I'm just so excited for this upcoming Saturday and to see all the fans at Jack Trice because I think it's going to be one of the most electric atmospheres we've had in a while.
I hope so. And this team deserves it. We'll put a couple of final touches on this game. We got to acknowledge the running back pass on 4th down coming out of the timeout. I tweeted it last night. I try to watch as much college football as I can, but I obviously don't pay as close of attention to other games as I do Iowa State. But it really seems like coming out of a timeout, I'm not sure if there's a better play caller coming out of timeouts than Taylor Mauser. You know, you can say whatever you want about him, that he's too predictable or he got really conservative in those losses, whatever you want to say. I think back to the West Virginia game when they went to that weak side toss, the Iowa drive where he hit Noel right on the sideline, where they knew Castro was going to play up. Last night, the Hansen running back pass, just time and time again, he's so good coming out of possessions, timeouts, however you want to call it. His first play is just awesome. And that was one of the coolest plays in Iowa State history that I can remember for a long time. I seriously.
Yeah, I got off the couch. I was yelling. I was pretty pumped up about it. I was pretty surprised. I was calling for just like a normal play action pass, but if they're going to run the running back pop pass, like I'm all for it. I thought Mauser really bounced back yesterday after a couple of games where there was a lot of criticisms about the play calling. I think that was definitely his best called game since the West Virginia game. And it obviously helps having number 9 just be a matchup nightmare out there. But as a whole, I definitely thought that was the most efficient the offense has looked in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And we haven't touched on the defense. I think we have to before we wrap this up. The stats don't show it. I think he had maybe 3 or 4 tackles, but 95, I think, has just been a difference maker. No J.R. Singleton yesterday. You really hope you get him back because we're going to need him on Saturday. But Dominic Orange was a problem again yesterday. Just whether it's like changing direction, like clogging up holes early where Bernard has to try to make something else and guys were tackling really well. But I thought Dom just played awesome again. And he's really been the reason why Iowa State. I mean, just go back to the Kansas game, right? Where he doesn't play and just the night and day difference. He comes back from that injury and the defense has been a different beast these last 2 weeks. Or we thought they were dead, right? Like you saw probably the worst defense in John Haycock's tenure at Iowa State 3 weeks ago. And now it feels like this defense is finally getting its identity back.
And that's been the difference is the pass rush because, I mean, you just look back at that Kansas game where it was literally non-existent, getting no pressure on Daniels, letting him do whatever he wants. And just having that little bit of pressure from 95 and from the rest of the guys, it allows all those guys in the secondary, allows the linebackers to do their job so much more. And he's going to be critical as long as this team's going to go. As long as he's out there, the defense is going to be able to do what it wants to do.
I got to shout out a couple more guys. Malik Verdone. I don't know if he obviously didn't
he broke his arm. I was so scared.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know if he's got like one of those bad contusions or something on his other bicep. He's already got the cast on his other arm. he's out there literally tackling with zero arms, and he's still battling through it. And he's still so important because you need him in like coverage and communicating. He's like literally, him and Bo Freiler are the quarterbacks of that defense, and you see how much communication is important even when you're playing with zero hands. So shout out to him for gutting it out once again. Jack Sadowski, another great game at linebacker. McLaughlin just having those two back and playing at their best like last year. It's just so, I can't underestimate or understate how important it is that those two are back. Anybody else, anything else, Justin, before we kind of move on to Farmageddon that you wanted to highlight, that you wanted to show its shine yesterday?
Not really. I mean, some of those guys on the defense I wanted to touch on a little bit, but you covered most of that. I think I speak for most people where got the job done and just kind of want to move on.
Yep. I kind of agree. Now let's move on to it. 6:30 Saturday night. Farmageddon is upon us, and feels like one of the bigger Kansas State games we have had in quite some time. Before we get into that, again, guys, remember to like the video, subscribe to our channel, shopnorivals.com, use the code PTFS for free shipping. Kansas State fans, go check out your guys' hats and make sure to comment below. We're going to get to predictions at the end. Kansas State, Iowa State, who you got? It's only a 3-point spread, Justin. It's 6:30. I believe this is a Fox kickoff. Iowa State right now is sitting at a 3-point favorite. I'm not surprised.
The same announcers as last week.
Oh God. I mean, Fox is just I get it. Like their A team is it's Klatt and Gus Johnson for Big Noon, right? And they're gonna throw a Big Ten game on that channel. I get it, but I don't know who was. I know Tim Brando was the guy who'd been in previous weeks, but I don't remember who the two last night were. I know Twitter they already let him have it,
yeah.
which is fine. They were horrendous.
Yeah,
actually, horrendous.
This is the first time I've sat down and listened to him in a while, because that was only the third game I've watched on TV this year. I've been at all the other ones, so I was like, what the hell?
That was one of the bigger plays. Seriously, the running back pass, just in college football, that was one of the bigger plays I've seen all year, coming out of a timeout, 4th down, season on the line. And they're just like, oh, look, Hanson's going to pass. Oh, the tight end caught it. Oh, he's down at the 4. I was like, are we for real? I mean, we can't be joking here. This is how bad it got. So I have 2 TVs in the living room, and Kaylin is watching the game with me, and she wanted to watch the Nebraska volleyball game, the top 5 match or whatever. So we put that one on the TV with the volume, and I just threw the Iowa State game on the bottom because I was like, I could care less hearing these guys. I don't want to turn this into a 10-minute soapbox, but I actually I think I want Tim Brando back next week.
Are we undefeated with those guys?
Yeah, that's the guy. Like Rocco's like, you guys got to come back. We'll be, which I think they would do it. People complained about them at the West Virginia game. For some reason, they felt like they were cheering for West Virginia more when they did that one
last night. But
yeah, well, I'm saying
maybe they just love the home team. I can't blame them there.
I think it really is kind of more that way. Go back if you haven't and listen to the audio of the field goal, the missed kick. Dude, the guy literally he kicks it and he goes, "Oh no." He literally says, "Oh no." I'm like, dude, who are you rooting for?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can stop talking about the announcers, but that reminded me on the kick. Did that kick remind you of the Texas kick from 2020 at all? Very different
I was saying, what do you mean he missed it?
I don't know. I was thinking of all the times that Iowa State's had game-winning kicks on them.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did he miss it when Dicker missed it?
When Dicker missed it.
Sorry,
because you could say the Iowa game from a couple years ago too, but that drive it was wet and rainy. I didn't think that was going in, but that reminded me a lot from the kick of 2020 when they stepped up to kick it, and everyone thought it was going in on the road. It's typically this is kind of how it's going to go, and then for them to miss it, it's I don't know.
I immediately thought of Texas Tech when that kid made the 63-yarder in 2021. As soon as he stepped up there, I go, he's going to make this. It could be good from 70 when he steps up there.
I was thinking this year's Texas Tech game when they got the ball back, I'm like, they're going to go score.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you know that kicker, Cole Becker was his name? He actually committed to Iowa State in the 2020 class and then decommitted to go to Colorado, and then he transferred to Utah. So
I did not know that.
little poetic justice there. I don't root down on kids, but that's kind of like
you are.
no, that's just poetic justice for the Cyclones. That's all I'm cheering for. That's all I'm cheering for. All right, let's break this Kansas State game down, Justin. And honestly, when we break it down, I put in the notes. Do we really need to break this one down? Do we really need stats? Like, what more can you say about this one?
I have
what more needs to be said?
I have this take that I've been talking about for most of the season, where I guess with a couple of the Kansas State losses, it's not as true anymore, but I still think, at least for Iowa State, it might be true. Is this like the biggest football game we've had, like ever, as Iowa State football?
Like leading up to it?
Yeah. 10-win season, 10-win season on the line, chance to go to the Big 12 championship, chance at the playoff if that happens after that. And I mean, some of the other games I was looking at were the Big 12 championship from 2020. But even if we would have won that, it would have been our first Big 12 championship. And to say we won it with Texas and Oklahoma in the conference would have, I can hear that argument, obviously, but we weren't making the playoff that year.
It wasn't, it wasn't guaranteed to make the playoff. Yep.
And then outside of that, there was never a game where it was like the last game of the regular season to cement something. And for this to be a chance at the 10-win season too, I legitimately think it might be the biggest game in Iowa State history.
The implications really didn't mean that much because it was an out of conference game, but the Iowa State game in 2021, like that one felt bigger than
the top 10 matchup.
Yeah. And it's just like, that's the year, you know, if you win that game, you're off to such a good start. Like I said, it has none of the ramifications as this one does.
That's what I'm saying with everything on this matchup.
On the line.
Have we ever had more on the line going into the game? Not to make it more stressful, but have we ever had more on the line going into a game?
And it really doesn't feel like, I will say, national media wise, it's not going to be that hyped up. I don't think. I really don't think the national media, ESPN, your college football talking heads, I don't think they're going to spend a ton of time talking about this game. Okay. Which I'm just saying, like you say, like, is this the biggest game? It's not going to be treated that way. I completely agree.
That way in the parking lot when I'm there.
That's right. But I'm saying the hype from the outside perspective doesn't feel like this one's going to be as big. But I think Kansas State wants it that way. You know, I think that this team's still pissed off. I think
that team's got nothing to lose.
Yeah, if you don't think this team wants to end Iowa State's magical season on Saturday, you're oblivious. And I don't know if you've been paying attention, Justin, but there's been some I would love for a Kansas State fan to let me know what's going on and fill me in, because after the Arizona State loss, Kleiman went on his press conference and he was completely distraught and said he let everybody down and he's been going through a lot. And then last night he has this moment with his wife after the game, and they're just like embracing each other. And he said he appreciates everything Kansas State's done for him the last few weeks. Obviously you hope family wise everything's okay with him, but it's been weird. I don't know what's actually going on, but it just feels like this Kansas State team is going to be playing with just the biggest chip on their shoulder on Saturday. Because I will say it, Justin, this team, when it's at its best, and it has been, not consistently, but it has been this year, it is the best team in this conference. They won't win the conference, but it is the best team in this conference. I will die in my grave and say that.
Yeah, as much trolling and hate that I've given Kansas State on this podcast, I agree with you. I mean, if Iowa State, we've been harping on it the last couple of weeks because just of how sloppy and how much we've shot ourselves in the foot the last couple of weeks. But if we do that this Saturday, it's not going to go well for us.
I agree. And you got to think, right? Think of all your November games: Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Kansas, Utah. You got to think you've played 4 of your sloppiest games. And even you can go back the week prior or the game prior, UCF, your sloppiest football has been played the last 5 weeks. The cleanest game, I think, to this season, Justin, would you say? I'd say it's West Virginia, right? That would be I think West Virginia is
Yeah.
the cleanest game Iowa State's played this year.
Yeah, probably.
And ever since then, it's just been, yesterday was the worst and you still got away with it. But it's a little concerning because I don't think you can afford to play sloppy against this team. I really, really think this could be a double-digit loss if Iowa State were to lose this one. As you're watching on the YouTube, are you looking at the schedule right now? Are you checking that out?
I
Or
was
what are you
just looking
doing?
at the schedule because we covered the spread in
We
1,
did cover
2,
against
3, 4,
Cincinnati.
5. We covered in 5 of our first 6 games, and then Cincinnati's the only game we've covered in the second half of the year.
Yeah, and you barely covered that one. So let's dive into them a little bit. If you don't know about this team, you surely should. Kansas State should be a top 25 team. The fact that Missouri, who was another one? Oh, A&M. It's kind of laughable at this point that some of these teams are ranked ahead of this Kansas State team. I know it's a rivalry.
I
It's
haven't
bitter
even
for me,
looked at the polls anymore.
but as a Big 12 fan, it disappoints me. This team's not getting any recognition, but it starts with quarterback Avery Johnson. Preseason hype. I'm not sure if there's been a guy with more hype around him than Avery. He's lived up to it at times, and at other times he's been really poor throwing the ball this year. I'll kind of cover that at the end. 60% completion rate, over 2,000 yards this year, 400 plus rushing yards. He's super mobile. This will be probably the most mobile quarterback I think Iowa State has seen in the month. You could argue Jalen Daniels, but I think Avery's better at using his legs than Jalen Daniels is, but we'll save that argument for another time. Running back DJ Giddens, this dude's a man. Stud all across the board. Doesn't get enough recognition as one of the best running backs in this loaded conference. Over 1,200 yards, 6.7 yards per carry. This guy had another big day yesterday against Cincinnati. When he's at his best, when he's running the football really well, that's when Kansas State's at his best. So if you're catching what I'm putting down, it's going to start with 31 offensively for them. And lastly, defensively, I'm going to highlight the safety Marquis Siegel. I believe he's North Dakota State transfer. Has a 1 or 2 pick sixes this year. It's why I kind of highlighted him. Leads the team in picks with 3. He's a difference maker, 47 tackles. Jacob Parrish, the other cornerback that's really good for them. They had guys leave in the portal last year, like Kobe Savage. I think he went to Oregon. Will Lee went to A&M. And these guys have plugged and played really, really well for the defense. And I think the secondary is the best part of their defense. Justin, we don't have keys to the game listed down on our outline, but what do you want to see from Iowa State on Saturday, or what do they got to do to win this one?
Yeah, looking at this Kansas State team on a macro level, just like you touched on, there's a reason they were like the favorites to win the conference, or one of the favorites to win the conference going into the season. They're really deep. They got a lot of good players, and they have a really good style of football, a style of football that has plagued Iowa State all season. And it's something we've been talking about all the way back since the beginning of the year. This is a game that we've been talking about for the last 12, 13 weeks. And I don't know if you can say any team as a whole can run the ball better than Kansas State, and that has just been our Achilles heel for the entire season. But I think luckily for Iowa State, I think this Kansas State team, although they may do it better, I think they play a very similar style of football to a lot of teams we've played this year, like a UCF, like a West Virginia, like a Cincinnati, where everything kind of runs on the ground for them, and their quarterback, while mobile and while very talented, can really struggle in the pass game. And I know Iowa State's kind of struggled with those teams as far as the season's gone, but if they're ever going to figure it out, it's got to be this weekend. And I think Avery Johnson, who struggled on the road, I think that could be something that tends to lean in Iowa State's favor. But yeah, it's got to start with Giddens. It's got to start with that running back and that running game.
It does come off to me that this team does struggle on the road. 2 of their 3 losses have been on the road, 1 to Houston, 1 to BYU earlier in the year, and then they had that home loss, that surprising loss to Arizona State, which put them in the driver's seat, which could have made this game all that much bigger had they won that one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
and they pulled out that Colorado win too, but they really struggled, had a lot of mistakes in that game too.
Correct. In their 3 losses, I highlighted this. Johnson throws 2 picks. He's thrown 2 picks in exactly 2 interceptions in all 3 of those games. He hasn't done that in any other game all season. Iowa State still ranks 11th in the country in picks this year on defense. The opposing offenses just like convert on explosive plays and those turnovers. They held Houston to pretty minimal in some of those plays for that win versus them, but they had like a big quarterback run from Zion Chris. They converted off the picks early from K-State. You go back to the BYU game, they gave up a punt return for a touchdown. They fumbled right before the half. It's just like when they're at their best and they're playing clean football, they're better than most of the teams in this league, but they haven't found, kind of like Iowa State, they haven't really been able to find their groove and overcome that in November. In 2 of the 3 of those losses, Giddens rushed for under 5 yards per carry as well. He had a big day against Arizona State, which was kind of the oddball, but on the road, he struggled against BYU and he really, really struggled against Houston. He had his worst game of the year against Houston, which gives me confidence. And I think Iowa State can slow them down. But if you let Johnson, with some of the read option stuff, if you let him get really comfortable, which we know Iowa State can give that up, then that's where I see Giddens have a big day like Devin Neal did for Kansas.
Yeah. I think what you said there, Johnson getting comfortable, is got to be the biggest focus of this defense. I mean, I don't want to lie and just ignore how Iowa State's been playing all year. It's not likely that we're just absolutely going to shut down Giddens or Johnson in the run game. The running back or the running from the quarterbacks have plagued us all year. And I think if Kansas State is smart, they're going to spam that QB run and maybe that option on us quite a bit. But we've got to keep them uncomfortable in the passing game. Whenever they do drop back to pass, we can't let him stand around and read and have all the time in the world. If they have that, it's going to be a big problem for us. And I think that's where Dom Orange and those linebackers come into play. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like we still have so much more room to be drawing up more blitzes. Even yesterday, I was begging for it in that fourth quarter. They bring in the backup who's giving us problems, and we're just giving him all the time in the world. Like, especially a backup or a young quarterback, you got to put pressure on those guys.
They finally, I'm glad you said that because I did want to highlight
the last possession when they finally did it.
Yeah. Well, the first 2 plays, they get him comfortable. He hits an under route. Then he hits a little curl to Bernard. Bernard goes down after that. After that play, they sent the blitz. The first one, I think he beats it with a throw. I can't remember exactly, but the second one is when they got to him quick. I believe it was Marcus Neal. I think it was Marcus Neal who got there, and that's when he threw it out of bounds. And they took the grounding, and that lost them the game right there. Put him out of field goal range for the most part, and was just killer. 10-second runoff, and so yeah, it was. I was screaming for it too after that we gave up the first 2 under routes, and I'm like, start blitzing, and they did. John Haycock is good at this job for a reason, guys, and he did figure it out when it mattered the most. So again, Justin, I agree with you. I really do hope they bring more pressure, because when Johnson receives pressure on blitzes and stuff, that's when he's been at his worst this year from everything that I've watched.
Yeah. A lot of his success have come off of like designed routes. And a lot of the times from what I've seen, it's been like that first or second read. And you got to expect Kansas State in this last game. They're going to unload the clip. They're going to unload their best plays. I mean, they're going to try to make him as comfortable as possible. And Iowa State's just got to have those answers, which Heacock and that defense tends to have. So gives me a little bit of confidence.
Let's do it then. Justin, prediction time. As always, you guys let us know in the comments as well. Like the video. Appreciate you tuning in. You want to start first? Or do you want me to? How do you think? You're going to be in Jack Trice Stadium on Saturday. What do you think you're going to see live in person by the time you head back to your car Saturday night?
It's hard to guess exactly, especially after last year. I feel like we were totally off on how that game last year was going to go. We expected it to be like a low-scoring affair, and then the snow came, and all the huge plays happened after that. But I feel like this Saturday is going to have a lot of points. I think although I tend to lean that Iowa State's going to be able to stiffen up when we need to in the second half, I think this Kansas State offense is going to give us problems, at least early on. And I think Iowa State is going to be able to answer just as well. Like I just talked about how K-State's going to be unloading the clip. I expect to see, especially after last week, Mauser kind of in his bag with some of the play calls this weekend. And who knows, maybe Sama will get a little more K-State magic in him, get him going again. So I do expect it to be a kind of high scoring game. And that being said, I've got Iowa State winning 31-28.
That would be a push. That would be a push on the line. At least
I originally saw 2.5, so it's covered in my mind.
Okay. I bet the money.
That would put us 6-6 against the spread this year too.
I do see the money going towards Kansas State by the end of the week, but maybe I'm wrong in saying that. I haven't picked Iowa State in all these prediction segments. Haven't picked Iowa State to lose one yet this year.
Neither have I.
9-2 in those predictions. In any other day, when these two teams line up across from each other, any other week, I would pick Kansas State to win this one. But when 10 games is on the line, the most historical season you've had in your history, and a chance to go to the playoff and a chance to go to Dallas for your shot at the playoff, there ain't no way in hell I'm coming on my show, the Iowa State fan perspective, and predicting the Cyclones to lose. I honestly, what gives me confidence is just that why not this team? Why not? Like, we're not expecting perfect football anymore because we've seen it and they've gotten through it. So don't expect a perfect game on Saturday. I'm sure something dumb will happen. But to me, what always has come down in this game, the Farmageddon rivalry between Kleiman and Campbell, the last couple of years between these great coaches in this conference, it's special teams and it's turnovers. Like, you can't muff a punt. You got, a couple of years ago, they returned a kickoff in the opening kick. K-State did. A couple of years ago, I think Iowa State did in the 2020 season, if I can remember correctly. Special teams is going to be huge. You're going to need Kyle Conradi on Saturday. He struggled a little bit yesterday. I think he bounces back and has a good game on his home turf. We're going to need some big kicks out of him. And on the flip side, turnover-wise, Iowa State, get after the young Avery Johnson. He's thrown 2 picks in all their losses. You got to get a couple if you're Iowa State on Saturday. I know it's going to be cold. Got to catch them. No drops. And, I'm taking Iowa State in this one. It would be kind of symbolic, like as stressful as going into this game could be and how close you think it might be. It would not surprise me if Iowa State comes out and wins this one, 31-20, and they win it comfortably. You're like, of course they win this one comfortably. Like, why wouldn't it? It would just be right because of all the stress you've gone through this last month. And then they just somehow put together maybe their best game they do all year. And maybe I'm completely wrong and I have no read on that, but that's kind of the way I see this happening on Saturday.
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, as sloppy as we've looked the last couple of weeks, I don't think we'll see a more focused Cyclone football team than we will this Saturday. And maybe some of those mistakes and those bad habits will be too big for us to overcome, but I know how high we were earlier in the season on this team. I still think that's within them. And I just feel like we're going to see some of our best football this Saturday. And if we see some of K-State's best football and they overcome us and we end up losing, so be it. But I don't expect it to be like a sloppy game where at the end we're just kind of sitting there thinking, like, how did we let that one get away?
So let's talk about it as our last thing before we sign out of here. Saturday night in Ames, Iowa. Sorry for those who are watching on YouTube. Be patient with me. If you're watching on podcast, appreciate you guys. Saturday night around 6:30. It is going to be a balmy 20 degrees. Justin, what kind of crowd do we get on Saturday? I don't think it sells out. Unfortunately, I do not think it even comes close, especially with the Thanksgiving break too.
Yeah, it's going to be tough without the students and it being Thanksgiving, people being with their families and stuff like that, and especially with the weather. But I do think it's going to be mostly a sellout. I think just the stakes of this game are massive. I think a lot of people are going to show up, and I think it's going to be a rowdy, hot chocolate and fireball fueled crowd
Absolutely.
ready to get after it.
The last time I checked, maybe the prices are going back up just because obviously they won. But the Iowa State K-State, they're kind of going up a little bit. You could have gotten some cheap tickets last week. Like
What are they
I'm
at
talking
now?
like $20. They're going for like 30 or 40 again, like the lowest ticket price. So maybe that's because more people are going and keeping their tickets. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Unfortunately, I will not be there. But Justin, you will be,
Crazy.
and I know.
Feels like a perfect environment for like tarps off or something like that.
I know. We've been over this. Yeah. All right. I will be cheering as loud as I can from the comfort of my own home, and I'm jealous you were going to be freezing your butt off. I love the cold games. It gets me fired up. I think those are the best crowds when you do get that, and 10 games is on the line. Justin, that's all I got for us tonight. Iowa State again. Conference championship on the line. College football playoff hopes are still alive, no matter how pretty it hasn't seemed. Anything else before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I'm just
What
looking forward to Saturday.
one more message, Justin. You always send us out great. Like, what is your message to the team for Saturday? You got anything?
I mean, I don't know if there's that much more to say after this. I mean, honestly, this is a game that we've been talking about for months now. I mean, since the schedule came out, this is a game that we have circled. And I know it's a game that Kansas State has circled too. And for as much that is on the line for Iowa State, I don't think you need somebody on Spotify or on YouTube to tell you how hyped up to be for this game. I think regardless, win or lose, there's probably going to be tears in my eyes based on how this game's going to go. And yeah, I just couldn't be happier for this team with how the season's gone and the coaching staff, and for them to at least have this opportunity it's going to be a great day to be a Cyclone, win or lose.
I agree. I think for how much this team has overcome, just the chance to have it with your last game, home game, senior night, just to have the opportunity that they have just as an Iowa State fan really fires you up. All right. We went extra long tonight, but it's due because this one's a massive one for Iowa State on Saturday. We will be back next week, win or lose, to recap the Kansas State game. And I hope we have a conference title to preview, Justin. I think that would be a lot of fun and love to see the interaction we get there. But I know our followers are going to be with us win or lose next week. So we appreciate you guys as always. Subscribe to the channel, like the video before you head out of here. We will see you guys next week. Enjoy the game if you travel to Jack Trice Stadium on Saturday. And as always, win or lose, how I always send us out. Let's go Cyclones.